Hello and welcome to Ear of the Dragon, a new podcast series presented by Mad Dragon Music Group. We are trying this out not just to add to another arm of the dragon, so to speak, but our goals are to interview artists we believe deserve more attention, to incite intellectual conversation at least at some level, and to indulge in our own passions by inviting on guests we are genuinely interested in. My name is Jacob McCloskey.
I'm Jon Herroon, and today we are joined by Sofia Verbilla of Harmony Woods.
Hey, thanks for having me.
They just had a record come out last October on Skeletal Lightning called Make Yourself at Home.
If you had to describe the sound of Harmony Woods in your own words, how would you phrase it?
Indie, emo, sad girl shenanigans.
Incredible.
There's lots of nodding happening.
We need a nod cam in here.
We do.
You grew up in the Philly area, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that like growing up in a good scene?
Word, yeah. So I grew up in South Philly, but I was super duper sheltered as a kid, so I didn't even really know the music scene was a thing until I got older. Like I became a teenager, and then I started getting into all these emo bands, and I started going to shows, and then I was like, wait, there are bands who live here who like do the thing, and that's sick. And I started going to house shows and stuff, and I don't know. I started playing guitar when I was 10, and I guess I started writing songs around the time that I started going to shows, because I was like, hey, these people can do it. Let me try.
What was the first show you went to?
The first DIY show I ever went to was...
Or just first, like...
I'll do first show and I'll do first DIY show.
Okay.
So my first ever show that I went to was the Naked Brothers Band at the TLA, which was sick.
Nice.
And then the first DIY show I ever went to was Dad's at Philomoka in like 2015, 2016. It was 2015, I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
Would you say, I feel like people associate you with the Philly DIY scene? Would you agree with that? Okay.
I'm in it.
Yeah. Would you say, like, when would you say that you discovered that or like got involved in that, I guess?
So I was a really big Dad's fan, and then I was listening to, I think it was Pandora Radio. I was listening to like
That
I think
puts
the
it on.
Dad's station of Pandora Radio. Yeah, that really
That gives
dates
a good
it.
time window.
yeah,
Yeah,
for
it
sure. And I'm pretty sure that's how I discovered modern baseball.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, they're cool. And then I learned that they were from my city, and that's when it really started.
Okay.
Yeah, that fandom, me really liking that band.
So how soon after discovering all of this did the first iteration of Harmony Woods come together?
Word, yeah. So I started writing this song that we have called Ghosts when I was like 14. And then I just wrote like the chorus, and then I didn't come back to it for like years because I don't know, I was really insecure, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. Writing is scary. And then I was 16 and still really not confident, but a little more confident than I was then. And I finished it. And then I was like, oh, cool. And then, I don't know, at that point I started writing other songs, and then ended up putting out this 3-song demo EP on Bandcamp under the name Harmony Woods. And that's kind of when it all started in like 2016.
How would you say that your songwriting process has evolved since then?
That's a really good question. I don't know. I go through these phases of writing. Like sometimes the way I used to write is I would just do this like total like stream of consciousness when it came to like, I was just like, I want to say all these words. I'm not going to give it any structure. I'm going to structure the music around the words, and that's how we're going to go. And then when I started writing our last record, Make Yourself at Home, I don't know, I started getting more poppy with my songwriting. I was like, let's make things rhyme. Let's have choruses. And now what I'm writing currently, I'd say is like a blend between the two.
Yeah. So who would you say, like, I feel like your music is very hard to define as far as like your vocals especially. It reminds me of like many, who would you say as of right now, your biggest inspiration is?
Voice wise, I'd say my two biggest inspirations are Mitski and Julian Baker, both with the way that they shape words and the way that they like enunciate, for sure. Because when I started singing in concert choir when I was like in 4th grade, I want to say, and we were taught to sing in this very like classical style, like enunciating like this. And then I started listening, and like I don't know, I got into rock music, and like I guess like the first guitar band fronted by a woman I'd ever heard was Paramore, and it was a very like poppy like rock like vocal style, and I was like, oh, that's like really sick. But then it wasn't until I discovered Mitski where I was like, hold on a minute, this is pretty neat, because she's like classically trained, you know. And then I was like, wait, I can totally like find a way to like just blend all of these influences into one. Like I don't have to be like all rock or like yeah.
So on the Paramore topic, are we talking like All We Know Is Falling era Paramore, or are we talking like
Riot.
present Riot? Okay,
Riot. Yeah. That's what you get has been one of my favorite songs since I was 10 years old. It's such a bop. It's so good.
It is. It is.
Do you have a song that you've written that you're most proud of to date?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think I want to say our song "That's Okay," which is from Make Yourself at Home. I'm really big into post rock, and it has like a very post rocky vibe, and like the way it like kind of explodes at the end. I don't know. I really love writing dynamic songs like that.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite song to play live? If it's not the same one that's your favorite that you've written.
Live, I'll either say "The City's Our Song" or "Renovations," because they're both fast and it's fun to play fast.
Playing fast is my favorite.
Same.
Every band should be just twice as fast at least.
Yes. Just nightcore.
Twice as fast.
Nightcore, but make it
200%.
everything.
What is the best Harmony Woods show you've ever played?
Oh my gosh, that's a really good question. I think I'm gonna say we just toured with The World Is a Beautiful Place and I'm No Longer Afraid to Die this past fall, and we played a show in Boston at Great Scott, and that night it was kind of a wild night, like emotionally for me, like some like weird personal stuff was happening, but I don't know, we got on stage and I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it because I have to, and I'm gonna like it. And I honestly think that was the best set we've ever played somehow. I don't know why, because I was going through this like complete turmoil, and like I don't know, it ended up all right. That's probably why it's my favorite set. Not just because like, oh, it was the perfect night and everything was perfect, but like it wasn't, but we still found a way to like make it work.
You took it out into the
Exactly.
performance. Kind of on that note, but as far as like the opposite goes, is there any tour experiences? You don't have to name drop, but is there anything that was like remarkably bad?
Worst shows, worst.
So
There's
we
a story here.
That's a question.
I'm not gonna say the name of the venue. I'm not gonna name names, but I'm not even gonna say the name of the town. But we played this like very small college town in Indiana. It was a super last minute show. Like I'm super grateful that like a show even ended up like coming together. We loaded in, and there were 3 acts. It was us at the end, and then 2 acoustic singer-songwriters before us. And the first person starts their set, and so, okay, let me describe the layout of the venue. So all the music happens in it was a bar. It was a bar, and then there was like a lower level. Like you go downstairs, and then that's where the shows are. And then, so you have the stage, and then there's like at the middle of like, it's not like a stage, it was more like a platform, but there was this like hallway, this corridor that you walk down to get to the bathrooms. The bathrooms were downstairs as well. So the first act is playing. They're like pretty quiet singer-songwriter. And all of a sudden, I notice that there is this puddle of fluid that starts leaking from the corridor where the bathrooms are towards the stage area. And it's happening very slowly, and I'm just looking and I'm watching it happen, and no one's really reacting, and I'm just like, I hope this doesn't get worse. And then of course it did, and it started the fluid started touching like our cables and stuff. It was like getting closer and closer to like the stage area. And there was also a very noticeable smell, which confirmed to me that it was in fact poo-poo water. And I was like, oh, that's not good. So I go upstairs and I find my dad, who tours with us. He drives with us sometimes. And
good old Keith.
Oh, I love him. But I go up to him and I'm like, Dad, there's poo-poo water touching our cables and I don't know what to do about it. And very calmly, he's just like, okay. And then we like gather everyone, and the venue solution was to look for cardboard boxes and like flat cardboard boxes and place them on top of the like fluid so that it doesn't spread.
So the fluid is still there. It's just that there's a barrier
to this
between.
Day.
To this day, the fluid, but like it was like the smell had to still be there.
Oh yeah, the smell was there all night, and then during, I think either right before or during so right before the second act set, they got rid of all the cardboard, and then during the set. So the guy's like, he's doing like an acoustic cover of like some hip hop song with certain words in it that he should not be saying given his demographic.
And
so this is happening. He's saying the words. And while this is happening, there's a staff member of the bar who has this like big squeegee thing and is just pushing what's left of the fluids around while this like white man is casually like saying the N-word into the mic. And it's probably the most cursed show we've ever played.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah, it's cool though. Not the N-word part.
Yeah,
the poo-poo water. Yeah, it's
always
fine.
Hilarious.
And that was, to be clear, that was before you started playing that you found out about this? Or was this in the middle of the...
Oh, yeah, so how did the smell go
I guess the
for your
timeline
set?
of this.
Oh, okay. I think by the time our set happened, I had just become like...
The poo-poo water?
Yeah, the poo-poo water just became me, and I just stopped noticing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of how it had to be.
So totally irrelevant to poo-poo water. But...
Gear change.
Gear change real quick. But Make Yourself at Home was released on Skeletal Lightning. Mm-hmm. How has your label experience?
Oh my God, Skeletal Lightning. They're the sweetest people alive. They're run by a husband-wife duo, Sean and Morgan. Oh. And they're I call them my label parents. They're so sweet and they're so supportive, and like everything that they do is for the bands, you know? It's like, I don't know. It's been really, really great working with them.
On the cover of Make Yourself at Home, who's the Reaper and who's the Ghost, and what flavor was the cake?
So I'm the Ghost.
Wow. Okay. Fun facts.
Wow. And my friend / our manager / the person who played drums on our last 2 records, Jeremy Birkin, he was the Grim Reaper, and the cake was vanilla from Walmart.
This all makes so much more sense.
Did you have the Walmart bakery people write Harmony Woods,
Yeah.
or did you?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
They did. We didn't give them any specific instructions. We were just like, well, we knew we wanted it to be like in print and not like in cursive, but that was it. And then came out pretty cool. Thanks, Walmart.
This episode is sponsored by Walmart.
I hope not.
Are there any other bands that are on the Skeletal Lightning roster that you're excited about?
Yeah, this band Mover Shaker, they just put out a record a few months ago. That's really good. If you're really into like very technical, like funky, like synthy alternative stuff, I highly recommend them. They're sick. I guarantee they're going to blow up within like the next year for sure.
So as you had mentioned earlier, you just finished up a run with The World Is, another Philly band. How was that tour? How did that all come together?
It was really wild. So about a year ago, I asked Josh to fill in on bass for Harmony Woods. He plays bass in The World Is. And I was just like, hey, like, we're kind of friends. You want to do this? And he was like, yeah, sure. And then we went on a tour together and, like, we really clicked. Like, everyone had a ton of fun. And then we were already scheduled to play Fest. And he was like, yeah, like, if The World Is ends up getting on Fest, like, we should tour there and back together. And I was like, what? Because The World Is has been like one of my favorite bands since I was 14. Like, along with like Dads, they were one of the other like emo bands that I got into like super duper young. So touring with them just totally blew my mind. It was so much fun.
That's a very good segue into the next question. Harmony Woods has played Fest a couple of times now, yeah?
Yeah.
Do you have any noteworthy Fest stories? And can you tell us anything about Fest Juice?
Oh my God. Okay, so unfortunately, Fest Juice did not make an appearance at this past Fest, but at the Fest before, which I believe was Fest 17, I went with my cousin Maggie, who is one of my favorite people on this planet, and we were both waiting outside the Woolly, which is one of the venues at Fest, and there was this crazy lineup happening all day, which was like pretty much all the counterintuitive bands, like all like the big like bands that like people like we're all on one show, and it like we like waited in line, and then we pretty much stayed at the venue all day. But you're technically like not allowed to have beverages with you, I believe, or like you're not supposed to enter with them. And Maggie had a caramel Dunkin' iced coffee in one hand and a Monster energy drink in the other, which was like kind of flat at this point because she'd been drinking it for a while. And she was like, I don't want to hold both these things. What if I just combine them? And then I was just like, okay, Maggie. and then I wasn't really paying attention, but she had combined them, and then she started drinking it. She was like, hey, does this taste kind of good to you? And I drank it, and you know what? It did. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, everyone needs to know about this. So we spent the rest of the weekend like making this wretched concoction and giving it to all of our friends. It wasn't until the ride back that we remembered that creamer was in the coffee and the beverage had been sitting in room temperature pretty much all day. Luckily, no one was ill, but in retrospect, it could have gone poorly.
Yeah. Worth the risk?
Yes.
Here's Best Laid Plans 1.
Fancy seeing you here, all by yourself, sitting in the low light, the fractals in your eyes dancing around. Say, are you lonely? You look like you could use some company.
Okay, so that was Best Laid Plans 1 from Make Yourself at Home, the new Harmony Woods record. Came out in October on Skeletal Lightning. Come back to what you had mentioned earlier. One of the first DIY shows you had ever been to was at Philomoka. Rip in peace. Philomoka recently shut their doors. They have a fundraiser, I believe, to help get back on their feet. We'll put a link to that in the bio of this this podcast somewhere. What are your thoughts about the venue crisis as it exists in Philly?
It's super sad. I mean, I don't know. I feel like being in DIY for like 6 or so years now, it's normal to see venues come and go, you know, especially house venues. Like I'd say most house venues are, you know, college kids move in, college kids move out, and it's like kind of like a circle of life. But Philomoka was definitely like, I don't know, the longest running venue that I have been to, if that makes sense, like DIY venue, you know, not including like the Electric Factory or something.
Yeah.
And I don't know, seeing it go was just very, very upsetting. Like I've been to so many of the most pivotal shows of my life there, and I've like played there before. And yeah, I mean, I just really hope that everything works out, you know?
It's the Franklin Music Hall now?
Yeah, I can't get
so-
used to it. I feel like such an
Dead named
old head
in
whenever I
AEG
call
room.
it the Electric Factory, but I can't call it anything
Oh, no, I'm
else.
calling it the Electric Factory
Yeah.
for the rest of my life. Totally unrelated, but what do you think of the term industry plant?
Oh gosh. Okay. I have mixed feelings about it because on one hand, it's very important to have conversations about how class and wealth can affect, how class, wealth, and connections can affect one's upbringing in a music scene and in the music industry as a whole. Like, it's not a secret. Like, if you're born into a wealthy situation and you're born with these connections, it's gonna be not so hard for you, you know?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like a lot of people reserve the term industry plants for talking about successful young women, and that definitely rubs me the wrong way. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like people like to use that term when it comes to successful young women because they think, oh, like she couldn't possibly like have done all that herself. Like, no way. Just like undervaluing like the hard work and the genius of women. So on one hand, yes, it's important. It's important to acknowledge how wealth can play a role in coming up in music. But at the same time, I just don't like the phrase because of how it's used, you know?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of turned into a like excuse kind of phrase rather than an actual like I feel like people
Yeah.
use that to discredit people in the same
Yeah,
way that
it's very discrediting.
in the same way that people use like mumble rap now. Like that
Yeah.
used to mean something, but now
Yeah.
it's just kind of anything that
Yeah, it's just like a very condescending phrase,
yeah.
for sure.
So what I'm hearing is we should call more people industry plants.
Yeah, go right ahead. Go crazy.
Looking back on your first LP, Nothing Special, and Make Yourself at Home, the most recent one, how do you feel the two differ? How are they alike? Any large changes that you've seen in the band or otherwise between the two?
Yeah, for sure. So Harmony Woods has always has always been sort of a rotating lineup when it comes to, you know, the people I play with, because we're a smaller band. We're not making a ton of money. It's like super hard to, I guess, assume people are gonna like stick around and being like a touring DIY band when you can't live off of it, and like that's totally fine, and I totally understand that. So I basically just sort of play with whoever's around at the time and like whoever's down at the time. Recording Nothing Special, I guess the similarities, well, the main similarity between recording Nothing Special and Make Yourself at Home is that I wrote the backbone structure of the songs. Like I wrote like the lyrics and like the composition and the chords on like rhythm guitar all together. And then I brought them to who played on those records afterwards. And then we all just kind of like hashed the full band stuff out then, either like right before recording or right in the studio. So I've never really been in a situation where I've like written a record with a group of people like throughout a long like span of time, if that makes sense. It's always been just like kind of like sudden and oh, there it is, it's a thing now. So I don't know, I would definitely like to try that out in the future, just like writing over like a long span of time with people, like not just like sheltering myself, because whenever I do write with other people, I find that they think of things that I never could have possibly thought of, and like I'm just blown away every time, and I'm like, whoa, that's why like bands exist.
Yeah.
So that's something I'd want to do more of for sure.
Do you feel like when it comes to the lyrics and like the lyrics of your songs, do you feel like you find yourself drawing from the similar experiences, or is it more of like what's going on with you at the time that you're writing it, if that makes any sense?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like it's a big blob, and in that blob is like past traumatic experiences combined with what I'm going through right now at this point of my life, combined with what I've watched loved ones go throughout my life. So I find it really, really hard to write about trauma like dead on, like to be super duper upfront about it. So I don't know, the way I tend to write about it is through the lens of like a quote unquote like fictional story, where I'm just like, okay, this is a story, these are the characters, but those stories are very highly influenced by things that I have experienced.
Damn. That's beautifully stated.
Oh, thank you.
So what's coming up next for Harmony Woods, and what is next in the Harmony Woods?
In the Harmony Woods cinematic universe. The HWCU, if you will. So we're going back on tour in the spring with a band that I love a lot. It will be announced within, this is getting posted in like early to mid-February, so it might be announced by then. But if not, it will be soon. And yeah, I don't know. I'm always writing new music. I would say that I am writing a record right now, but I'm kind of afraid to jinx myself. But at the same time, I'm the boss. So I'm going to say, you know what? I am writing a record right now. When's it going to come out? I don't know. But yeah, that's what we got going on.
All right. Before we finish up, we've got a few rapid fire questions.
Oh.
Do we just want to alternate?
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
The first
How
one.
How quickly do I have to answer them?
As quickly as you can without not answering.
In as few words as possible?
No, if you want to expand on it, that's fine.
Okay.
This first one was submitted by a fan, Mario. Who's your favorite Philly band of all time?
All time? Hop along.
What is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Chocolate marshmallow.
What's your favorite go-to Taco Bell order?
Beefy cheese and not beefy, cheesy bean and rice burrito. Replace the regular beans with black beans, and then add potatoes. And then people have told me to also grill it, but I've never done that because I feel like it takes longer, and I feel like the whole point of Taco Bell is like you're starving and you need it right now. So I've never had it grilled, but I do look forward to trying it grilled in the future.
If you met a dragon in real life, would you choose to befriend it or do battle with it?
Depends on the vibes.
If you only had to listen to one band's discography on a desert island for the rest of your life, who would you choose?
The National.
Quick answer, no hesitation.
No
Jesus.
hesitation.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Sophia, for joining us.
Thank y'all.
Thanks to the people in Mad Dragon that helped produce this podcast.
Yeah.
I believe this podcast has an Instagram now. I'm gonna pull it up before I say the wrong.
Ear of the Dragon.
Ear of the Dragon.
At Ear of the Dragon.
Woohoo!
Cool.
Special thanks to our engineer and editor, Covey Carpenter, and our producers, Jon Herroon, Jimmy Conroy, Evelyn Scott, Evan Ballew, Gaby Andrade, Jenna Harju, and Grace Christian. Thanks to Drexel University for making this episode possible, and most importantly, thanks for listening. Stay tuned for episode 2 coming soon.